After stitching out some buttonholes, the next thing is usually to sew some buttons into place. Now these two blocks are part of our Husqvarna Viking Stitching Cosmos online course. We incorporate sewing on the buttons in our tassels lesson and using bar tacks underneath them to hold the tassels in place. So something fun. Remember, stitching out all your decorative stitches, they just add such a fun array of options that most people don't even realize are in their machine. Take a look at our 10 free videos that you can watch. The links are right below this YouTube video. So sewing on buttons, let's take a look at which stitch you're looking for and let's figure out which foot you use. You'll find in your utility stitches that your button sew on option is below your buttonholes at stitch number 58. Now if you heard that little click, that is the feed dogs actually lowering for this stitch. So this machine will automatically lower the feed dogs when it's appropriate, like this particular stitch. And I kind of asked you a question, which foot do we need? And you'll notice that we don't use a foot. This little tool is our multi-purpose tool, so if you've needed a shank to actually help separate that button from the fabric, then you would incorporate sliding that underneath the button before you stitched it on. So the nice thing is, all we have to do is line up the needle with one of these holes of a button and then it will stitch. Now, how does the machine know what stitch width these buttons are? So if you notice, you've got big buttons and you've got small, tiny buttons, but 99% of the time, those holes actually match up. I can see through those two buttons right now, even though one is small, it's so small it just rolls away, and one is big. So that particular stitch width most of the time is going to be just fine, but if you have some unique buttons, you can always make it wider or a little bit narrower. The ×8 you see on screen, that's how many times it's going to go back and forth through the eyes before it locks. If you want more, you can actually increase that and have it do some extra stitches for a little bit more reinforcement. So since we don't need a presser foot, we'll slide it completely off. We'll slide the button into position where you want it stitched. If you look, the needle's hanging out on the left side of the stitch. So that would be a clue that you want to bring that needle down into the left hole first, and then lower the presser foot onto the button. That is holding it in place. That's all you need to do. Now what I do, one more step, is to hand turn, catch the swing of the needle, and make sure it goes into the other hole. Once you've done that, you can step on your foot control or push the start-stop button, which will allow it to go back and forth those 8 times, plus allow it to lock at the end. You can use the thread cutter. It will pick a hole. That's perfect. Now, did you notice I actually stitched the front 2 holes first, and then I can move, and I usually do that because then that's held in place a little bit. Should I get really close to the edge of the button, as that second side is getting stitched, that presser foot coming down can kind of be living on the edge, but since it is tacked in place, you will find that it will be just fine holding it until it's done. So take a look at that. And a little tip at the end here, if you have anything like fray check, which is like a clear fabric glue, put a little fray check over those particular stitches and they will never come out, and then you won't ever have to really sew buttons back onto garments that have loosened up. So that's a great way to secure them and make sure that they never come off again.